Between you and me, I'm a fan of Pope Francis. Look, I'm not Catholic. I've never been Catholic. I don't plan on ever becoming Catholic. I'm just a plain old simple non-hyphenated Christian learning to follow Jesus. So while I am not a Catholic, I am a fan of Pope Francis. 3 stories for you to illustrate why I'm a fan of Pope Francis. Number 1, from the Catholic News Agency, dated March 21st, 2013. 5 days after his election last March, Francis surprised the owner of a newspaper kiosk in Argentina with a phone call. Hi, Daniel. It's Cardinal Jorge. He went on to explain that he'll no longer need the paper delivered each morning. Daniel, the kiosk owner's son, would not believe that it was the Pope calling. Seriously, it's Jorge Bergoglio. I'm calling you from Rome! Daniel breaks down into tears. I mean, come on. This is a good Catholic boy who's talking on the phone with the Pope. You would cry under these circumstances too. Number 2, from the BBC, dated March 26th, 2013. Francis is taken to the Grand Papal... Papal? I don't know. Apartment that has been occupied by every Pope since Pius X. But it could be Pius X. I'm not sure. I don't know who this gentleman was, but I believe this took place in the early 60s. Yes, I know I could Google it. It has more than a dozen rooms, staff quarters, a terrace, and extensive views over the city of Rome. Francis stood in the dark while somebody felt around for a light switch. When the lights came on, Francis looked around and said, "There's room for 300 people in here. I don't need all of this space." He returned to his 2-room apartment. At least for a while. I love this guy. I'm a fan of Pope Francis. Yeah, you. And number 3, from the Washington Post, dated July 22nd, 2013. Pope Francis on his way to a week-long tour of Brazil, including taking part in World Youth Day, an event that attracted literally millions of young Catholics from all around the world. Francis was seen carrying his own bag onto the plane, and for some reason, I don't know, could it be that he's the president of an organization with over 1 billion members? This raised eyebrows. The Pope doesn't carry his own bag. This Pope does. It is said that he was simultaneously demonstrating humility and signaling to other Vatican officials that they could stand to behave less like royalty and more like priests. Sidebar. According to the New Testament, all believers are priests. Back to the bag. What was in it? During the 80-minute, 21-question interview that took place aboard that plane, he was asked that very question. His answer? A razor, a book, travel agenda, just stuff. I always carry it, he said. Of course, Jesus is the ultimate example of humility, of being meek and lowly. And I don't have the time to recount Jesus telling the scribe that the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head in Matthew chapter 8, or to remind you of Jesus stripping off his outer garment, his coat, and tying a towel about his waist, and getting down on his hands and knees and washing his disciples' dirty, dusty feet, wiping them with the towel that he tied around himself. Nor do I have the time to recall what Paul wrote in his letter to the Philippians in chapter 2, saying that Jesus emptied himself by taking the form of a servant. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Or how about 500 years prior, Zechariah prophesied about Jesus, saying, "Behold, your king is coming to you. Righteous and having salvation is he. Humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." No, there isn't enough time, because in the few seconds that remain, I want to remind you of the time in Matthew chapter 20 that the mother of 2 of his disciples came to Jesus and asked him to say, in front of everybody, that her 2 sons, James and John, would sit one on his right hand and one on his left when he came into his kingdom. And Jesus replied, "Whoever would be great among you must be your servant. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." In chapter 12 of his letter to the Romans, Paul wrote, "For by the grace given to me, I say to everyone among you not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think." Yes, I am a fan of Pope Francis, because he's showing me a glimpse of what a servant's heart looks like, and what Jesus means when he says, "If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example." Question: are you a fan of Pope Francis too? Let us know why in the comments below. And until next time, this has been Between You and Me with Michael T., your Great Commission transmission.
You are tuned in to the GCT Network.
This is your Great Commission transmission.
At GCTNetwork.com.
Great Commission transmission. This is your Great Commission transmission.
And Francis. That sounds like I'm saying Anne Francis. Zechariah, 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 Zechariah.